Hello and welcome to the Legends of Tabletop podcast. We are going to be playing Other Borders tonight with Tod Foley. This is Todd's other game. It's based on the drama system. I'm going to kick it over to Todd. We're going to do a session 0 tonight. We might get into a little bit of gameplay as well, but I'm let Todd describe the system, talk about what we're going to be doing, and we'll go from there.
Hey, we will go from there. All right, we'll go from right here. Other Borders is a game of magical realism that takes place in a town called Entre Lugares, just north of the U.S.-Mexico border. Struggling in the wake of the economic hardships ravaging the American Southwest, this little town has become a focus as of late due to the not too far away ongoing protests and activist organizations around Donald Trump's wall, as well as the drug trade, which has been moving into this area as the money has been moving into this area. And of course, there's always your human smuggling and illegal trafficking across the border, which is fueled generally by guns and money that comes from this side of the border, because corruption is everywhere and life can be tough. The system is based on Melandros by Tom McGreenery. It is a hybrid of Robin Law's drama system, that's the core engine of the Hillfolk game, with the sort of the crunchier bits removed and replaced by moves a la Apocalypse World, powered by the Apocalypse type moves with success, partial success, and failure based on a die roll and a mod. So that makes things a little more procedural than straight drama system, but more dramatic than straight AW. And we have run through a semi-complete session 0, but just to let everybody know how the game works and how this is done, we're going to run through session 0 in that order, complete and flesh out our characters, and then hopefully we'll have time to do one full round of scenes. Who knows? Maybe 2. Are you guys all ready to introduce your characters? Can we begin? Yeah. All right. Now, I don't recall what order we went in. John, maybe you actually have the Slack up. Like, we could go in the same order as we did when we talked the first time.
I think we bounced around a little bit as people were kind of in and out. So if you want to just call an order, we can do that.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to call from left to right, and that means Jesse on my left. Introduce your character and your general place in the community, your role in the show. Who the hell are you?
All right. I will be playing Emmanuel Manny Velazquez. He is a spiritual medium, at the very least 6th generation. He learned the trade from his grandmother, his abuelita, and it's basically been passed down through the bloodline from generation to generation. He is a reluctant medium. He doesn't really accept the ability that he's been given, but he understands that he has it and he has to deal with it, especially since he pretty much sees spirits nearly everywhere he goes anyway. So dead people. So
right, I'm going to stop you there. That's a good starter. We're going to go around and around, and each time we go around, we're going to get deeper into the character. Right. Next time around, we're going to do your desires and dramatic pulls. Let's move on to John. John, introduce your character to us, please.
All right. I am going to be playing Javier Rogers, now Castilllo, as he has taken his mother's maiden name. He's a 3rd generation Mexican-American. His great-grandmother on his mother's side moved up here to the States. His mom married an American businessman who doesn't necessarily encourage the biracial nature. So he kind of didn't know a lot about where he came from, and moved down to Entre Lugares to find out more about himself and his family and his background, and winds up hooking up with his Tio Martin and becoming a shaman.
And that's a little important bit right there. Your uncle is the shaman of this particular area of town, pillar of the community. Shawn, I'm moving on to you. Hello. Introduce your character, your general role in the community and the cast.
I am playing Filippo, the great Pacini. He is a combination Italian slash Filipino. Young man whose grandfather had been a stage magician and had gone on to Italy to, in his grandfather's dying years, help him do his stage magic, become an assistant. And when he came back to America, he found out that his father was a trader, a dealer, a street criminal, and with a great network set up. And he tries to get his father out of it, but in doing so, he gets pulled deeper and deeper into it. And at this point in his life, he's moved on from his father because he figured he was a burnout and he had wanted nothing to do with him. And he's merged his street magic into his dealing and networking. So he treats everything like he's a magician, but he's really one of the town's best fixers and dealers.
You're also the proprietor of a local theater, right? Which has seen better days, but still active.
Oh God, what was the name I wrote down? It's a Teatro
Alhambra.
Yeah, Teatro Alhambra. And
Right
I will note that he is probably very proficient in not just his first languages were Italian and Filipino, but Spanish and probably French, just because the general Romance languages. So English is kind of like his second language,
or fifth. All right, we're going to go around again, and this time we're going to get a little bit deeper into these characters. Now, as you just, I'm not sure what the words were used. I heard young used once or twice, but from what I recall, Javier, that's John, and Manny, that's Jesse, are both like 25, 26 years old, and Filippo's a little bit older, like late 30s. Is that right?
Yeah, like mid to late 30s.
And the first two are originally from here, from Entre de Garras, whereas Filippo moved here. Now, we're going to find out how these three characters are connected as we go along. And this is part of what the character generation system in this game does, is it forces people to create connections between themselves and the other characters. So as we go along, we'll see how that works out. Let's go around one more time. We're going to talk about desires and dramatic poles. Every character in the Hillfolk system or in the drama system has something they desire, and then two dramatic poles that they're torn between. Like, I could be this kind of guy or I could be that kind of guy. This is what gives characters a lot of flavor and motivation. Jesse, you're up.
So Manny's desire is control, specifically control over his abilities, so that he doesn't just see random spirits and ghosts all over the place, and that he can actually almost shut it out. He wants control so that he doesn't have to deal with it anymore. And his dramatic poles are freedom versus responsibility. So he wants freedom from this life, but at the same time, he knows that he takes care of his abuelita, and he knows that he owes a responsibility to her and the family.
Nice. John, tell us about Javier's desires and dramatic poles.
His desire is knowledge with a capital K, like ultimate truth type of reality. He's learned all this stuff from his uncle, and he's fascinated by it and driven by the quest for knowledge. So that's his one dramatic pole is for power, and then the other is responsibility. He's always being counseled by his Tio. Responsibility to the family and the community and the power that he is, gaining and learning about.
Nice. And Filippo, what about your desire, and what dramatic poles are you torn between?
Let me read through this. So if I remember correctly, he is so he comes to this town because he's caring for his grandmother, his mother's side of the family, which is huge clan of Filipinos, and he has this urge to do the right thing, but his father had injected into his life all these bad things. So he's torn between this selfish desire to build empires and this want to try to make the world a better place. But he's also haunted by his ancestors because his grandfather wanted him to be this great. He wanted his father to be a great magician. His father was a failure. So he tried to be a great magician, but he just became a criminal like his father. And he's not sure if there's hallucinations or spirits that are haunting him. So he's developed a sort of alternate personality that is his vigilante, Count of Monte Cristo sort of revenge upon the evil with these elaborate plots like jigsaw trap type of situation. And so his pole is between selfishness and selflessness.
Did I really just hear you say jigsaw style traps?
Wow. Okay. maybe a little jigsaw.
Yeah. I just, you know, I'm not retconning. I just never pictured that depth before to your psychosis.
not like building a machine so much as setting up a series of events that leads them to their own karmic retribution.
Oh, okay. Masterminding.
I mean, which is how I always saw Jigsaw, which is like how you set up these karmic traps. But that series was all blood and gore, and it's a little less blood and gore.
Okay, so more on the social engineering part, not so much on the mechanical traps.
Yeah, let me go more the Hannibal TV series.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. So you're a complex and Machiavellian individual, I think is a good way to sum that up. And torn between, what was it? It was altruism and self-interest, basically?
Yep.
Cool.
Should I say fulfilling the legacy of his ancestors versus his own legacy.
Okay. And at times in the game, as we move through, everybody's going to get their chance to call a scene, and we go around the table. And when calling a scene, you try to figure out what it is that your character might want or be doing. These are the key places to look at. You know, what is it that you desire, and what dramatic pole is acting upon you right now? How can you move closer to one of them? Because that's where the motivation of the character comes from. And so the game is the context against which that motivation will play itself out. But in order to make that interactive, we define relationships between all the characters, and we'll show you how that went in this next round. Jesse, talk to us about your relationship with the other characters in the game.
So Manny has a relationship with Filippo, in that that is with his dealings of the underground and everything like that, with certain narcotics and substances. He actually gets most of his abuelita's medications through Filippo. Because he's able to run down across the border, has contacts down there that can get drugs and prescription drugs cheaper down in Mexico. So he, rather than attempting to go through a pharmacy up here or, trying to get healthcare, he ends up just getting it down there.
Okay, so you rely on Filippo for abuela's medicine.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to Javier, there's something that you want from him. And
yes.
There's also a reason that you can't get it. Let's talk about that.
All right. So with Javier, he knows his uncle. He's a pretty famous shaman in the area, and because Manny's abuelita is pretty much gone mentally. She hasn't really been able to teach him lately. So he's looking for somebody else to try to teach him how to harness and control his abilities. And so he's trying to use Javier as kind of a throughway to get to the uncle. But all right, as far as I know, yeah.
We can have John answer.
Yeah.
We can have John answer as to the reason why that ain't going to happen.
So Javier doesn't trust Manny very much. He knows of Manny. He can kind of feel the magic about him, and it feels dark. He knows that Manny is practices more of a brujo, which is more of like a, more dark magic, and he just doesn't want to get wrapped up in that, doesn't want Tio to get wrapped up in that, and just doesn't trust that his intentions are pure, as it were.
Nice. All right, and we'll stick with you, John.
All
You
right.
can talk to us about your relationships with the other characters and what it is that you want from one of them.
Well, so Javier knows Filippo. Everybody knows Filippo. He's strutting around like a peacock all through town.
Yeah.
But he wants. So apparently, his uncle has disappeared. He's left Javier a note.
Okay, wait. Your uncle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Tio Martin, and he wants. Filippo is somehow involved in Martin's disappearance. The note said to go and talk to him and find out where he, hey, I talked to Filippo. We have some kind of thing going on. Take care of stuff around here. I'll be back. But he hasn't come back.
And was that a long time ago or just real recently?
I think it's like real recent. Like maybe there's a scene tonight that involves that.
Okay, so it's pretty recent. Tio, who is also your mentor, has disappeared, and all you know from the note he left behind is that Filippo is somehow involved.
Mm-hmm.
So you want Filippo to get Tio back. Now, Filippo, I'm switching over to you. How come that ain't happening?
So the uncle had Tio had some sort of heat that he needed to get off of him, and he asked to disappear. And I do want to make sort of a footnote here out of this. That Filippo is a public figure. He's a very public figure. He's known in town as a magician who does shows. Kids come. He does like schoolworks, parties, stuff like that. So there's always this layer of protection where he's not directly interacted with anything that goes on. He works through intermediates in a way to where his hands are always have to be clean. Otherwise, the cops are right on you. So anyways, he sets up things like a magic show. He's like, well, Tio wants to disappear, so he takes him to his theater, and he's like, does a disappearing act, and Tio doesn't come back. What happens is a Tio gets placed into some local gang, and a smaller gang to protect him from the bigger gang who's looking for him, or the organized cartel or whatever. And in that process, the gang realizes what Tio can do and doesn't want to let go of him. But the way Filippo's explained it to him previously is Tio wanted to disappear, but when he tried to make him reappear, Tio couldn't reappear. And he's kind of, cryptic and mystic about how that process went down.
So the reason that you tell Javier that you can't get his Tio Martin back is some sort of magical difficulty?
No, like Tio wanted to get away because bad people were after him, but now that he wants him to reappear, other people don't want Tio to reappear. But he's like, he doesn't want to, tell specifics because both sides don't want themselves revealed.
Okay. Now, I'm sorry, go on.
Oh no, I suddenly got this this image of the fact that Filippo always talks in like magic speak. So like he describes everything as a magic trick, no matter what.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever
at
straight
some
speak.
point in the show, we're going to hear him say the prestige. All right, so Filippo, what is now that tells us a lot actually about your relationship with Javier, but we can go a little bit deeper than that. You've got a relationship with Manny and something that you want from him. What was that?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what it brings. Manny. Oh right. So he's haunted. So he's not sure if he's seeing ghosts or hallucinations, but I mean, if you ask a proper shaman, there's really no difference between the two. So he believes that Manny can help him contact his ancestors to find appeasement to the dichotomy of how he's become and how he thinks the ancestors wanted him to be. But Manny doesn't. I don't know if you've said in the previous thing, Manny's like not interested in that.
Well, let's go to Manny for that. How come you're not going to give Filippo what he wants? He wants you to contact his dead papi.
Manny has very little control over his abilities, and he doesn't really have the ability right now to call specific spirits. He pretty much, whoever comes to him is who comes to him. So he doesn't really have, and like there's a few spirits that like hang around him. But in terms of like actually calling on a specific person, he can try, but he doesn't have the ability like his grandmother did to actually say like, I want to speak to this person, bring them to me.
Okay. And from what you said before, I would kind of get the feeling he doesn't really want to anyway.
No. It's part of the control that he desires. It mainly like controlling when they come and when they go, mostly to be able to make them go. But
okay, all right. So now we have all three characters related to at least one of the other characters, and all three characters have something they want and a reason that they cannot get it. This is where a lot of the drama is going to come from as we go on through play. And now we go around the table one more time. I'm going to start with Jesse. We're going to talk about your character type, your abilities, which is basically the stats, the ones that you are good at. They have a greater than a 0 score. There are 4 of them. So let us know what character type you are, what your strong abilities are. Maybe you could do them in descending order. And then talk to us about your signature moves, your 2 special moves that you can do. Jesse.
All right. So my character type is a brujo, spiritualist, and the abilities that I went with were magia, making, sneaking, and knowing. And then for signature moves, I ended up going with the one that really made sense was the spiritualissimo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what actually came up in our discussions, especially coming from how Javier thinks of him, was bad reputation.
Nice. So your reputation precedes you, and Javier is not the only person in town who sees you as a dark, brooding individual. Mm-hmm. Nice. John, let's talk about your character type and your abilities and your skills.
All right. Well, Javier is a shaman. His strong abilities are magia, knowing, talking, and enduring. And then I took, because of his introspection and desire for knowledge on the charts that we have, there was community moves that he could take, and it didn't seem appropriate based on where he was. So both of my signature moves are both magia. So I went with transformation and astral travel.
Now, astral travel, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. Transformation, that's changing into an animal.
Yes, it's actually shape-shifting. Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular animal that you change into?
There's 2, actually. He changes into a coyote and also a raven.
Nice. And Shawn, talk to us about Filippo. Let's hear your character type, your abilities, and your signature moves.
All right. Now, given the time frame that he's a bit older than the other characters, Filippo had spent about a decade being a hustler, which is type, but it's like a con man doing jobs with other people, running point, et cetera, which the sleight of hand really comes in. But at this point, he's actually shifted from character type, so he's just a pure dealer. He doesn't like to do that kind of hands-off stuff anymore because it brings too much heat onto his public figure. His abilities are business, moving, talking, and sleight of hand, which we went with instead of what was the other one? The default one was
it was, I think, community
stealing or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyways,
so you're like on the character type being dealer / hustler. You're more on the hustler side, but you also do a little dealing. Yeah.
He's dealer. But
Okay.
10 years ago, over the 10 years of being a hustler, and now he's just a dealer. So he has a history of being a hustler as far as the game world is concerned.
Got
So
it.
his abilities are business, moving, talking, sleight of hand. Signature moves are I know people and do the hustle.
All
Do the
right.
hustle.
So we now have our characters in place. We know their relations to each other, what they want from each other, etc. And I'm going to try to screen share this image. I don't know if I can do it. It will let me screen share the entire window, but it won't let me screen share just one application. What?
Just select that tab, maybe.
No, you guys seeing this?
Mm-hmm.
So there we all are. Boy, now I can't find. Yeah. Okay. Now you're seeing yourselves, huh? Look at that. Okay. So
Inception.
yeah. This isn't as good as it was on Firefox. It worked much better on Firefox. Okay, so I'm going to close this. It doesn't really work for me. I'm not sure what I'll do. I've got some pictures for like NPCs that'll come up from time to time, but that's not working the way I wanted it to. So the way this is going to go is, oh, and what time have we got? Oh, that was good. We did that in 30 minutes, you guys. What's going to happen is everybody's going to take a turn calling a scene, and I have your names on these little cards that I have written down. I'm not looking at the other side because I've already shuffled them. We'll do that in random order, but I'm going to start off by setting the first scene. We'll make it around one round. We'll see what our time is. Maybe we'll make it around a second round. Each time we go around, I shuffle the cards again, so the scenes are in random order. And then at the end, I'll do a final scene to wrap up if we have time to do that. And then we can distribute learning and all the kind of after game bookkeeping stuff. Now, the theme, every episode has a theme, and you may get additional drama point for playing into the theme. The theme for tonight's episode, the pilot episode of Other Borders, is Voices of the Dead. As the show begins, there's a blinding white light in the middle of a field of blackness, and the camera pulls back, and we realize that we're in a cave being illuminated by this white light that's hovering in midair. As the camera pulls back out of the mouth of the cave, it begins flying backwards. The foothills recede. The cave goes into the distance until it's blocked by the foothills. As the camera continues moving backwards, we see the outskirts of a small southwestern town. The Las Afueras, the sort of ramshackle part of the barrio with, old homes or cobbled together homes, some homes built out of scrap pieces of metal and lumber, rusted old vehicles. And although it's evening and getting fairly dark, there are lights everywhere because there are colored strands of little colored bulbs on wires strewn across the streets from here to there. As the camera keeps pulling back, we see a small cemetery with people walking in and people walking out. And the camera moves and flies over the heads of the people walking in, and they're all families, mostly Latino families. The entire families have come together in big lines, and they're bearing gifts. They have marigolds, they have drinks, they have bottles, they even have toys that they're bringing as gifts for the dead, because it is October 31st. It is the first of the 3-night festival of El Dia de Muertos, the Day of the Dead. Tonight, the children, los angelitos, the little children, are being honored by their families who miss them and are bringing them gifts and toys. As the camera continues pulling back, we see light coming up out of the little graves and forming into the ghostly bodies of small boys and girls who look like skeletons, but happy and wearing their normal clothing. As they come out of their graves, they begin tagging along behind their families and following them home. The camera spins through a dark port of town where the buildings are run down but larger, and nestled in between two of these buildings we see El Teatro Alhambra, and we listen to the sounds of the ice cream man as he passes by. The theater has seen better days. It's quite run down, but it is still a grand reminder of the sort of a Baroque architecture, indicating that this town once had a heyday, which involved what was at the time a pretty fancy theater. As the theater doors open, we see Filippo step out. He's talking with one of his cronies, one of his informants, and something passes between their hands. Filippo is on his way out because despite the fact that tonight, as is customary, the theater is showing Don Juan, which we do every year at this time of day, there's something he's forgotten, and he has to run down to Morgan's Botanica and pick that up real quick. The camera spins past Filippo and his confidant into a part of town closer to Main Street, where the buildings are once again a little bit larger, and brick gives way to more modern concrete designs. Here, between two alleys, we see a couple gang members speaking to a man seated in a black limo. The man is wearing an expensive dark suit and has shades on. Something passes between their hands, and the lead gangster sends the younger gangsters off to scatter in different directions. As the camera continues spinning through the town and flying over houses, we see the small, unassuming house that Javier lives in with his family. He's just stepping out of the door because there's something he needs to get down at Morgan's Botanica, and he waves goodbye as he heads out into the street, nearly running into a parade of people carrying calaveras, sugar skulls, gifts, and marigolds, many of them drunk and weaving, as this parade of people moves across the town and back to the cemetery. As we go with them, we see Manny, who's just coming out the door of his house on his way down to Morgan's Botanica, where there's something he needs to pick up before he can properly do the rituals that he would perform tonight in honor of those departed. The camera then spins around to pan back to Morgan's shop, seated right across the street from the park, which is now grandly lit, and the air smells of frankincense and marigolds, drunken people reveling everywhere, people walking by in costumes and gay-colored decorations, girls walking by in groups with the calavera skull painted on their faces, and men solemnly gathered together to give a last drink and a toast to one of their dearly departed and fallen. Morgan's Botanica sits just across the street from the park, and as we let's say, as the title credits show, and by the way, tonight we are introducing John Haremza, Jesse Pine, and Shawn Koch in Other Borders. The theme music ends, and the camera comes down to ground level, where the door of the shop opens up. Morgan is standing there welcoming all three of you who happen to arrive at the same time. Morgan, who I could show you if screen share is working properly, she is a sort of a mystical white woman. She's been in town for about 2 decades now. It took her a while to ingratiate herself with the locals, but she has managed to do so, and now runs this little botanica where you can buy not only classical mestizo ceremonial agents, reagents, and other ritual ingredients, but also Western and even Eastern magical items such as mineral oils, various types of crystals, and tarot readings, which she does on the side. As a matter of fact, it looks like she's just beginning to lay out the tarot deck when she saw you three coming and hurries toward the door. She looks first at Javier. Her eyes, Javier, seem to indicate that she has something she'd like to talk to you about. But then she greets all three of you together because she's very gracious and welcomes you into the store. Is there something I can do for you? I know tonight is a very, very busy night, but I'm not closed yet, so I'm open.
Javier catches the look, and he just kind of steps off to the side and nods to the other two because he wants to hang back and see what she has to say.
Mr. Pacini, I hear that your show of Don Juan is doing splendidly. I hope that I get a chance to see it, although I do have to tidy up around here and there's a lot of bookkeeping to do. What can I help you with tonight?
I am here for supplies, incense. I need the good smells. You know how that goes. You want the people in the audience to interact. It can't just be visual. You have to have an element of atmosphere.
And Don Juan the lover, you want something robust and sanguine. I know exactly what to get for you.
And if you ever want to come around, anytime we will put on the show for you. We will even do a private showing.
A private show just for me?
Wow, you are a distinguished member of the community.
You flatter me, sir. Go on. I'll get your incense and be right back. Oh, Manny, is there something I could get for you while I'm back there?
And he just kind of looks up a little bit and he points to some candles that are kind of spread out on the back. And he said, "I'm just here for a couple of those."
Well, go ahead and help yourself. I'll be with you at the register in just a couple minutes. The door closes behind her, and let's have everybody roll one die for me. Who rolls highest?
It won't be
We
me.
roll D6s, right?
Yeah, just roll 1d6.
I roll the 1.
2.
I don't have a dice roller up. I should probably just go grab a dice.
Oh yeah, you're gonna need some.
5.
Was that our highest roll?
Mm-hmm.
Filippo, you hear harsh whispers from behind the door. She's not alone back there. The other voice sounds male, and if you're not reading this wrong, threatening. Do you do anything?
No, he's a casual observer. There's no obvious thing going on yet. So
Okay.
he's going to kind of play it by reactionary instead of proactionary.
Okay. Well, she's gone for like a minute too long. And then when she comes out, she closes the door quickly behind her. You don't get a chance to see if there's anyone else in the room. But her face has gone whiter than usual, and she is a white lady, but she's extremely pale at the moment and looks a little bit jarred, a little bit shaken up. She goes over to the register and rings you up as quickly as she can, and she doesn't make any small talk now.
When she rings him up at the register, he when he touches her hand, he kind of holds on to it, and he says, "If there's anything you ever need, anything to help you or protect you, just say the word."
Her hand goes rigid, and then she squeezes your fingers twice in succession and looks at you and then looks away and starts ringing Manny up. There's a close-up on her hand as it very deliberately squeezes your hand twice.
He's trying to decipher that in his head. Give me one moment too. I'm gonna AFK while I go grab a dice.
Yeah. Okay, so Manny, she's ringing you up. These candles come to $12.95.
All right.
I can just put that on your tab if you want. You're a good customer. And there's a
I-
weird break in her voice when she says that.
All right. And he so I'll say he hates this time of year because everything is alive around him. So he actually has like almost like a t-shirt hoodie, and he has like the hood pulled over just to focus his vision. And so he's just like staring at all he sees is like the counter and her, and that's about it. So I think he would he be able to notice what's going on with her at this point? Now he's kind of like face to face, or is it kind of, I can understand too, like with all the commotion and everything, he's just kind of not too focused. I don't want to break the roll. That's what I'm saying. I didn't roll well. So if the roll is what counts, I can say that he's
No, actually, the roll.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and have you roll plus knowing. That's roll 1d6 plus knowing. We're going to call this find something out.
All right. My knowing is +1. So that's 4 + 1 is 5.
Okay, so in this system, which is a variant of the Power by the Apocalypse system, basically 6 or better is good, 3 to 5 is kind of good, and 2 or lower is
Mm.
So you get a 5. So you get to choose one of these things. You can find out what you want to know, but you're going to have to wait, or you're going to have to spend money. Or you can't do it without attracting attention. Which is it?
I think that attracting attention might be more interesting right now.
Okay. So Manny tries to probe a little bit and sort of stumbles over his words, and she holds her hand to her mouth and gasps. She spins involuntarily and looks at the door and then looks back at you again. And then she looks up at the others because she realized she's just totally given away that there's something behind that door. Now she looks actually scared. And she starts stammering when the back door opens a crack. A man looks out. He's glaring at her. And the door closes again. She says, I've really got to hurry. There's a lot of work to do before closing up. This is a very busy time of year, and I have places to be. Really, gentlemen, please, I don't want to rush you out, but I have to rush you out.
You have some company back there, Morgan?
And what are you talking about? And it sounds very false, and you're sure that whoever's on the other side of that door is not going to buy this much longer.
Yeah. So he'll say
he is not a good liar.
Yeah. So I actually think that I'll pay for that now. I don't want to run up my tab too much. And he'll reach into his pocket and pull out his wallet and say, can you break a 20? Are we
can you just owe me, please? I know you're good for it.
You know what? I think I have some smaller stuff in the car, and he doesn't drive, and nobody. Like, could you help me? I have some stuff that I think my abuelita wants you to take a look at as well. See if maybe you can take it off her hands. Did you come take a look with me?
She starts breathing hard, and there's a sort of a tremble in her breath.
Filippo reaches forward and touches her hand again and says, "There's always a choice you can make. Gentlemen, we should probably leave." And he starts heading towards the door.
Her mouth says, "Thank you. Have a good night. I'll see you gentlemen later." And her eyes are saying, "Please don't leave me."
And just shoot a look over at Filippo like a common. Not surprising.
Javier says, there's the matter of my list. There are still some things I need to acquire while I'm here.
Sure, I'd be happy to help you with that as quickly as possible.
Can I make a knowing roll?
She swallows hard.
Can I make a knowing roll to see if I recognize the guy who opened the door?
I will give you that.
All right. I will take it. Oh, I rolled a 6 and I have +2 to that. My knowing is 2.
You know exactly who that is. That's a guy named Joker. He runs with a gang called Los Tigres, and these guys are fucking bad. They are. They wear like facial tattoos, go around shirtless, beat people up in the street, and demand protection money. Joker is one of the baddest ass motherfuckers in that gang.
So he steps closer to Manny because he knows that, Manny has actual power. It says, did you notice who that was?
He'll just kind of shake his head a little bit while still trying to keep eye contact with Morgan.
And he kind of like puts his fingers in his mouth to like pull his lips back to indicate the Joker.
Let's make a knowing roll. What the hell? This is an unusual circumstance.
For me?
Yeah.
All right. That is a 5.
You. No, I'm sorry. You know that he's indicating that there's someone back there, but you already knew that.
Exactly, yeah.
So he puts a hand on his shoulder and he leads in real close and he says, Joker.
And he'll just kind of go slightly rigid at that point. Like he's kind of leaning on the counter, and so like he'll like kind of back stiffens, he pushes down on the counter a little bit, eyes then start to like go past Morgan, just like looking and thinking at this point.
Okay, Morgan, by the way, has quietly moved over to the counter where it looks like she's fiddling with her phone.
So I got a question. Knowing that I know this community and territory, whose territory is this area? Is it this gang, or is it a different gang's territory?
We are on the edge of Los Tigres turf. It is kind of debatable as to whether the Botanica is in Los Tigres territory or La Familia 13.
And what was the gang Joker was? Joker
is Los Tigres.
Okay. So their rivals would be what, Familia?
Casper is the guy who's the head of La Familia. You know him better because the Teatro Alhambra is on their turf. And he's actually a reasonable guy. He's more interested in making money than threatening people's lives. So La Familia is more drug dealers, whereas Los Tigres is more protection and extortion.
Okay. All right, because he's on the phone as like while they're talking, he's moved outside quietly like a magician. He's on the phone to Familia 13, and he's telling him, or he's asking him, let me rephrase this. He's basically telling him that someone may be moving in on this area and threatening one of the local storekeepers. And wants to know if they have anyone who would be able to send some muscle.
Do you mention that it's Morgan's Botanica?
Yeah.
There is just a 5-second lag before you get your answer back. Casper's coming right down. And you're like, whoa, I didn't even think I had enough pull to get the head guy down here.
And I tell him I will owe them whatever favor they wish. And
right.
He hangs up, and then he like prepares himself for the coming conflict.
Let's jump back into the store. Manny and Javier, you guys have noticed that Morgan is desperately trying to message someone on her phone, but doesn't seem to be able to get through, and she's growing more and more frustrated. She keeps glancing up at you like she expects you to leave. But the look in her face is kind of like, don't leave.
All right. Manny will actually kind of look at her, stand up, and he's like, Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I meant to need I need a couple more of these candles. It's that time, and we got a little extra business coming in. So I think we need. So I'm just gonna be right over here, if that's cool. Okay.
She looks really worried as she nods her head and says, I think I have some more in the back. Let me go check for you.
I don't.
She spins around and goes back into the back room again.
Tries to catch her, to stop her beforehand, but
nope, she's gone, and she pulls the door as tightly as she can behind her so no one can see into that back room, which is not like her at all. She's a very open person. She's one of those new wave white women. Javier, what about you? What are you doing? Now the two of you guys, having already spoken, are left alone together because the magician has left and Morgan has left.
So Javier walks over to where Manny is and says, I really don't want to be involved in a shootout tonight. What do you suggest that we do? A hex on him is not going to help right now, I don't suppose.
You still got a lot to learn. Hex isn't going to do no good right now.
At that moment, you guys hear the boom, boom of the 808s. There's some gangster rap moving in from both sides of the building. It's incredibly fucking loud. The whole building and the windows are vibrating. Sounds like 2 or 3 cars. They're playing the same track at the same volume on both sides of this building. You hear a door kicked open on the other side of that door, and a scuffle ensues. Voices shouting, "Get the fuck back! You want to move in here? You'll be moving in over your own dead body, bro. Look, you are outnumbered. Get the fuck out. This is our turf. She's our girl."
So wait. Did I hear this this entourage approaching?
Now, what you see from where you're standing is one car goes sailing past you to the front of the building. Another car breaks off from that and goes to the back of the building. Doors of both cars open up, and 3 guys run out of each car. So you can't see around the back of the building, but evidently they're storming this place from both sides.
And these are what, Familia?
These guys are Familia.
All right. He's out smoking with a little old 30s cigarette holder with a clove on the end. And he greets them and tells them that she's in the back or whatever. And then watches the madness.
We cut back inside. There's a lot more shouting from the back room as the front door bursts open and 3 guys come in. You recognize them as La Familia. They've all got 13 tattoos all over their bodies and shit. They're all packing heat. They're all looking around the room. They're all waving their guns around. They don't see Morgan.
Javier puts his hands up and he just points to the back door.
They nod at you and run to the back door. You hear Morgan scream. You hear a shot fired, and then the 3 guys come running back out this way again. They run through the shop, out the front door, and get in their car and take off. Outside, Filippo, you see them come bailing out, get in their car. It burns rubber as it peels out and narrowly avoids the parade of people celebrating the Day of the Dead as it spins around the corner and makes it back south.
Fuck, Manny, if the door's still open, Manny will go in.
Stop taking my name.
Javier goes in because he's concerned for Morgan, so he wants to go in and make sure that.
Yeah. I think Javier. Now you have me doing it. Damn it. Manny takes the beat, looks at Javier like, "You gonna do anything?" And then once Javier starts to run to the back, he'll follow him.
All right, and Filippo, you staying outside?
Well, after the car,
I mean, it is against the law to smoke indoors.
I think he's gonna like meander around the building to see what's going on behind the building.
Okay, the other car is still sitting out there. Its door's wide open, and the back door of the shop is wide open. I'm going to cut back inside. Inside, you see Joker on the ground. He's holding his gut. He is breathing really hard. You can't tell whether this is a fatal wound or not, but he has surrendered because he's surrounded by 3 other dudes from La Familia, all pointing at him point blank. He is basically holding his guts in, and he's being given a lecture by La Familia that this is not Los Tigres territory, and that he's going to have to go back and tell his people to back off of Morgan because she's their girl. He gets up. He is bleeding bad, but he's walking. He shoots dagger glares at everybody else in the room. And he says, "You know this isn't over," I say. And then he leaves.
Does he leave through the front or the back?
The back.
As he's leaving through the back, Felipe just casually
He probably has to walk past you.
Yeah, like as he's walking past, not even looking at him, he just casually goes, "You know, I can make you disappear." And then he moves inside to check on her.
He doesn't even look up, but he goes, "Fuck you, old man."
So Javier moves up to Morgan and, like, puts an arm around her, like turns her like away from the blood pool on the floor. Just says, "Are you okay?"
She's trembling. She's white as a sheet, but she is okay. And let's see if we can make this work. Try to screen share with you. This is Casper. All right, so he is the leader of La Familia, and he's in this room. He was the last guy who Joker was talking to on his way out the door. So Casper turns around and he pulls his bandana down. He's half white, half Mexican. They call him Casper because they consider him white. And he says, "Listen, you don't have nothing to worry about. It's just like I told you when we talked before. You help us, and we'll help you, right, Morgan? That's what we're here for. We're not going to let those fuckers stomp on you. You're our girl." Morgan is nodding. She seems more comfortable with these reassurances from Casper than she did with the threats from Joker, but there still seems to be some tension here.
Javier looks to Casper and says, I don't suppose that she was texting you."
Let's just say I have my network. No, it wasn't her.
Fair enough.
Listen, I don't know what you two guys is doing here. I want to thank you for any participation that you partook in. But we got this covered from here on out. So Morgan's going to be fine. Everything's copacetic. You guys can just move along.
He thanks him. I appreciate it very much, Casper. I'm sorry this had to ruin such a fine Day of the Dead for us.
No problem, man. You know, you and me, we go back. All right, and with that, he helps Morgan up, and he looks like he kind of expects you guys to leave.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Exit states right even.
No hesitation.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he would like, look to Morgan for reassurance that it was okay to leave.
Morgan catches your eye and gives you a sort of a weak smile, and you notice as you're on your way out, just this is like over the shoulder kind of a glance, but you catch her eye, and he has put something on the table and slid it across to her side of the table. It is a plastic bag full of what look like rolled joints.
Okay. I mean, it's not a complete surprise. Did she wind up packing my order or no?
She did.
Okay. So he would grab that on the way out then.
Hey, is Casper Familia my contact for hallucinogenics, or is it a separate person?
No, it probably is Casper, unless we're talking about hard stuff, because there's another gang called Eques Blanco that does heroin and harder stuff.
No, just like shrooms and LSD type of stuff. Peyote.
Yeah, so your connection with Casper and La Familia probably does indeed go way back. It's not just that these are the people you went to when you needed to make Tio disappear, but it's also that you've had business dealings going back for some time.
Yeah.
And as the
From my old hustling days.
As the dope is slid across the table to Morgan's side, she places her hand on top of the bag, and she looks up at the three of you and just sort of smiles and nods. And I'm going to close the scene right there. Now, my intention, that scene, was for Morgan to get one of you guys to help her. And I would say that the person who helped most was Filippo. So I'm giving Shawn,
that's the thing, though, is he helps. He's a roundabout help. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So they charged in, like, let's go help her directly. And he was like, I'll go around the back and bring someone else to help her.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure without you calling in the other gang, me and Javier would have been shot.
Yeah.
Wow.
My
pleasure, gentlemen.
So as you can now see on the little chart, Shawn has a drama token.
Oh, yay.
Okay, now drama tokens can be used, at the beginning you can't use them much because you don't have many, but as you accumulate them later, it's basically when you ask for someone to grant you something, if they give it to you, you give them a drama token. If they don't give it to you, they give you a drama token. And this basically gives you sort of like the ability to control the way the narrative goes later in the game. You can spend your drama tokens to either push your way into a scene or pull yourself out of a scene or make something happen the way you think it should happen. You can also use it when you're in a direct negotiation with another PC to you want him to grant you something and he doesn't want to, you can sweeten the pot with a drama token. So Shawn has one. That's the end of that scene. It is now time for the second scene of the show. And our first player is going to be, it's Filippo.
The great Pacini.
The great Filippo. There it is.
I mean, around town, it's just the great Pacini.
Okay, so our theme is Voices of the Dead. You have got a drama token for helping Morgan with her problem between these two gangs. There is a show going on in the theater. I'm not sure whether you're actually cast in the show or whether you're like just the director or just the proprietor as far as the show is concerned, but there is a show of Don Juan going on tonight, and it's the Day of the Dead. You may have dead relatives or friends of your own that you want to honor. So set the scene for us. Where are you in the next scene? When is it? Because you can time jump if you want to. Who are you with? And why are you here?
I'm going to say he's with his stage crew behind the curtains, watching the performers perform. And it's later in the evening. As all the festivities start to wind down, people pour into the theater to watch a show about the Day of the Dead.
Okay, let's hear your intent. What is it that you want, or what purpose is this scene going to serve for you?
He's keeping an eye out. So there's a sub-story I was going to inject that there's these two disputing gangs, which I guess we just kind of injected that already, where he's looking to...
The group mind is ahead of you.
He's looking to get a hold of someone because he needs to try to settle a sort of peace or truce between rival factions. and I'll leave that up to you, whatever the rival factions are.
Well, you know what? You did just remind me of something. So we can go ahead and do your expository scene, but before we do that, I'm supposed to have you make a roll because you got these side hustles going on all the time. And at the beginning of each episode, which for you now is now, we need you to roll your, is it do the hustle? Yeah, it's do the hustle. Right? It's a hustling move. So you're going to have to roll 1d6 and add your, instead of sneaking, I think you used a different stat. Was it sleight of hand?
Sleight of hand. Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to roll 1d6. You're going to add sleight of hand. You want to roll as high as you can.
4 plus a sleight of hand.
And the total is?
I don't know. Let me see. So, oh shoot! You know what?
This, basically, just to fill the audience in, he's got this skill called Do the Hustle, where he's got 2 rackets going on the side. Well, now he chose surveillance, which is a network of informants, like we saw him speaking to in the opening shot. And also, he's a fixer, arranging for the right people to meet each other to make deals happen. And this role is to see like how that racket has been doing lately. What kind of position?
What's the ability spread? You said it was. I know there's one's the lowest, 2 in the middle, and one's the highest. What's the point totals for those?
I can actually just look up your stats here. Hang on.
Yeah, I didn't write them down. I got to write them down in the actual.
All right, you are sleight of hand 3.
That's what it is.
Business 2, talking 2,
and moving 1 because he's got. I want to develop. He has a limp and a cane. I just thought it'd be a great character element. He got injured at some point, and so he still has sort of a limp.
So your roll is a 4, and you're actually adding 3. So you got
so 7.
You profited from both your surveillance or extortion network because they were basically, we saw them, in that opening shot, giving you information. So you're making money off of that surveillance. You also made money from arranging for people to meet each other. So you have 2 monies.
Ooh. 2 whole monies, huh?
Yeah. Now, monies are relative in this game. Like a money for a rich person is a lot bigger than a money for a poor person. So it's literally 2 monies.
2 monies, 1 drama token. All right.
Cool. So now, take us back into your scene. Are there any other PCs in there with you?
Oh, yeah. He's got his right-hand man there, which I didn't generate a name for. And he's got his crew. He has various stage. So on the surface level, it is like an actual theater. So he has a theater troupe. He has the lead manager or probably a couple managers, like a morning crew, day crew. I don't know. Let me step back. So he has his staff, various performers, and a manager, and then he has his assistant. And they run the theater like an actual theater business. And he's sort of distanced himself slowly over the years to where he just sort of does other things on the side and then comes in and oversees projects as they're being done, unless it's a special occasion and he comes out and does his own performance stuff. He's also, you know what? He's tutoring other local people in the magician arts. He's looking for more apprentices and local kids who want to learn magic and stuff like that.
Okay, but tonight is a special night. There's the Don Juan show is going on. So what's he doing right now? And what does he want out of this scene? What's his purpose here in this scene?
His purpose is that, 1, he wants a good show. He always wants the highest, it's his brand, so he always wants the best of the best, the greatest show that his people can put together. But 2, he's looking for a specific contact in a faction to talk to them aside the show, pull them aside, or talk to them during an intermission.
Okay, well, this is your scene, so you can cast it. Are you able to contact them? Is there somebody here that I should play?
Let me roll a dice, because the dice is a great. No, I'm going to say that not only is so I rolled a 1, so I'm going to say that not only is the person he's after not here, but the rival that he's trying to start a truce with is there, and he doesn't want to talk to them without the other person first.
Okay,
so he's kind of like,
what does he do? Give us what does the camera see here?
Well, he's behind the curtains, and he's kind of glimpsing through the through the curtains and looking at the stage, and he could see all the faces in the audience lit up, and his performance or doing the motions of the different scenes from Don Juan. And whew, I feel like I'm out of creative juice today.
Okay. Maybe if you look at your desires or your polls, because there is something between you and this old theater that might be neat to show people. Right? You've been having some spooky shit go on, like when you're all by yourself lately.
Yeah.
Let's see.
When I'm by myself, I'm haunted.
What is that like?
Oh, you know what? There you go. So behind him, since he's alone and his assistant has gone off to do other things, and he's in the darkness of the rear theater, and he hears his grandfather and his great uncle behind him whispering into his ears, this is not the type of performances that we told you to do. You have twisted it. You have done it wrong. You have brought great evil to the family. And it's like cold, and there's ice sort of, all the surfaces that are reflective sort of ice over, and he hears them and he feels their breath upon his neck. And when he looks, they're not there, but he hears them constantly.
Shit, bro. That's going to drive you to drinking.
Oh no! You know what? I'll go with that. He has a little flask, and he takes a shot of scotch, and he rubs his temples, and he's like, "Keep it together, Filippo. Keep it together."
All right. Is there anything else you want to establish in this scene?
Since the other rival person's there of the faction that he kind of wants to shut down because they're being aggressive, and I'm going to say it's not Tigre, but a different, very aggressive faction in town, probably a little farther away. He kind of wants to, the vigilante in him starts speaking up, and he hears, like, you need to give him his just desserts, and he's kind of formulating, and the gears are turning in his head of some way that he can make this man face the aggression that he's put out to other people. But he needs an in, and he needs more research before he could really do that. So I think he's going to follow him after the man leaves the theater.
Okay. After the man leaves the theater, we see Filippo peering around the corner. It's the guy that we saw in the opening sequence with the shades and the expensive suit. He gets into a limo. He's got attendants and drivers surrounding him. They look not only expensive and well-groomed, but also carrying heat. And he gets into his limo. So, do you have a car?
I'm assuming he has like a small car.
Yeah.
Like one of those smart cars or something. Just really
What kind of car? What kind of car does Filippo Pacini drive?
No, you know what? I'll go with like oh gosh, the ones that they had in the 70s is little tiny like foreign cars that are basically like just a tin can.
What, like a little Peugeot or something?
Yeah. I'll look up some car brands here, but it's like something from Italy or France or one of those places that you see in the old 70s movies.
And so you get in your little car and you drive off following the big stretch limo, huh?
Yeah, and he knows to give it like a certain amount of lead.
What I'm trying to determine is whether this is an exposition scene or a dramatic scene. Because if it's an exposition scene, we're probably done. And if it's a dramatic scene, we have to figure out whether you got or didn't get something that you're looking for.
Okay. He is trying to find out where these people operate out of. They've been very good at keeping quiet on where their home or not their home, but their central operations is. So he's doing reconnaissance. He's got a little binoculars on a stick, and he's like drives to follow them. And then when they stop, he parks down the road and he watches them.
Oh, okay. So the limo goes to the outskirts of the airport on the northwest side of town. And there are some hangars out there that are rented out privately by rich individuals who have their own planes. The limo pulls up to one of these big Quonset hut type buildings, and they all get out and go inside there. Apparently, they've been making this hangar at the airport their base of operations.
That's why.
The guy who you're trailing, by the way, is a cartel boss named Abel Cisco. Everybody calls him Mr. Cisco.
So here's a question: is that tied to the people who were after Tio?
It is, in fact, one and the same.
That would put everything together. It's a basic piece of the puzzle. I found out the car too. It's a Fiat Tempra.
Okay, cool. You could screen share it if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were looking to find out Cisco's base of operations, and you've now found it. It's a private hangar up at the airport on the northwest side of town. And there wasn't any drama, so there's not going to be any drama tokens, but I think we can go on to the next scene. Because you got what you wanted to know.
Yeah. Let me see if I can screen share 1 second. How'd you do that?
On the left side.
Ha.
Yeah.
All right.
And then select application window.
Okay.
So you can choose just the window that you want to share.
All right, I'll share that, which is, oh my God.
Oh, it's a hangout section.
Yeah.
Can you see the cars?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that's the kind of little beater, just an old school, cheap ass car.
Okay, that's kind of perfect. That's exactly what I pictured him driving.
I mean, I'd love like a magician's car with, like fancy stuff and like colors and flyers and stuff, but that's only for when he's doing a show on the road or something. He has like a van or whatever with a, like showman stuff, and he brings all his crew. But this is his personal, just around town.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a procedural scene because I want to give you a role to find something out. Okay, so that is.
I'll make a roll. What am I doing?
Yeah, no, it's not going to be from talking though. This should be from knowing. So add knowing to whatever you rolled just now.
Okay.
What do you got?
Figure out those numbers. So I got a 6, but I got to figure out what my knowing is. This is a part of the game that I didn't fully get processed. What are our numbers for the rest of those stats?
They're all 0. If there's only 4 of them that are not 0.
Yeah. So we'll go with just a 6.
Okay. So you do get a little bit of bonus information. I'm going to say that is you hang out there for a while, watching the hangar, and you see a couple people come and go. When Cisco gets up to greet one of them at the door, you see some stuff exchange hands, and damn if it doesn't look like the guy just gave Mr. Cisco a bag of those same kind of joints that you saw in Morgan's shop.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, so that's where we'll end the scene. And it's time for Javier. Javier, you are up. It's time for you to tell us where you are. Now, remember, you can time jump as much as you want, forward or even backward. Who you're with, when is it, and why are you there? What are you looking for in this scene?
Oh, let's see. So I was thinking when we started that maybe the scene starts, the camera pans across the desert, you see some scrub, cactus, and whatnot, and you see a coyote kind of padding through, just kind of walks through the shot, and the camera follows it, and he winds up, walking for a little bit, comes up the back of Tio's house. There's like a shimmer as Javier takes his human shape. He's coming out from the direction of the what is it? The crystal cave, the cave of the
Shining Lady.
Cave of the Shining Lady. He's coming from that direction. It's the morning of the previous scene. So he's coming in from the previous night and comes into the house.
Wait, so we just backed up like 12 hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So he comes into the house. It's quiet. Obviously the lights are off and everything. So he kind of pads around looking. He pulls his clothes back on. He leaves his clothes by the back door. So he's walking through, doesn't see Tio. He's not there. Thinks it's strange, right? It's the morning of the beginning of the festival for the Day of the Dead. Doesn't think, well, maybe he went out, maybe went to go get some of the stuff. Sleeps for a little bit, gets up in the morning, a little bit later, and then comes out, still no Tio, goes to make breakfast. He sees the note. Notes, hey, I'm going to be out for a little bit. I have to do a thing. If you need to talk to Filippo, make sure you follow through all the preparations for tonight. It's the festival. Do what needs to be done. And then I don't know. I mean, it's more of an expositional thing, like the revelation that something's going on, and then he doesn't think anything of it right away, so he doesn't say anything when they're at the Botanica. He's like, oh, maybe he's out for the day, he's doing things, he's seeing people. It's he's kind of taking care of community business, but then he doesn't come back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this can all be like a flashbacks in your head. What's it's on your mind. It's bothering you. But I kind of want to see you do something. Active. Yeah. It might be something tied to your desire or one of your poles, or it might be something linked to the scene that we just saw.
Could it be so at the?
Now, remember, for instance, that we have told the audience, like you want Tio back from Filippo, but on camera we haven't actually seen that happen.
Right. Well, he wasn't. He's not overly concerned that day yet. But as it, sort of draws into the evening, I guess maybe he would be more.
So are you saying that Tio's disappearance is really just one day ago?
Yeah, yeah, right.
Okay.
That's my headcanon anyway.
Okay, well, all right. So then I'm going to jump you forward into present time, because in present time, your desire to get Tio back is actually one of your driving character goals.
Yeah.
So
maybe
he's always home by this time, or he never misses El Dia de Muerto. But for whatever reason, and you tell me what it is, now it's bothering you and you need to do something. What do?
He starts to beat feet towards the theater to go and find Filippo to find out exactly what the note means. Like, they hadn't gone to his grandmother's grave yet. Like, he was waiting for him to do that, and he didn't come back.
Cool.
You wouldn't miss that.
Let's follow you to the theater and cut to interior where you meet with Filippo.
All right, so maybe I snag Filippo as he's.
Don't be afraid to do this, gentlemen. We actually need this to happen for PCs to interact in the same scene.
Yeah. So maybe it's before, before you leave to go on your little chase. Maybe you're at, wandering around, like he sees you peeking through the curtain, maybe, and kind of makes his way sort of around to the side, and grabs one of your guys and is like, I need to speak to Filippo. I have a matter I need to discuss with him.
All right, yeah, they take him to the backstage. It's Manny, right?
No, Javier.
Javier. We'll get this right, I swear to God.
They're not even close.
Oh, Javier, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. It was a good thing you did earlier tonight. I wasn't sure how that would play out. I had no desire to be shot this evening.
The community protects its own. What brings you to the theater? Have you come to see the show? You are halfway through. You have missed quite a bit.
No, I had gone home afterwards, set up a few things. Tio hadn't come home yet. He's usually home by now.
Sort of statuesque, quiet poker face at that name.
he doesn't catch it right away because he's concerned now. We hadn't yet gone to Abuela's grave tonight. I was waiting for him to come in. He'd left a note this morning. I didn't think anything of it, but he said that he had some business with you.
You love your Tio very much, I take it.
I do.
We have a problem, and I wish to respect your Tio's wishes because he is gone by his own volition originally. However, he has been put into a situation he cannot come back from. Not like he's still alive. Let me not split hairs. He's fine. He's healthy. He's taken care of. But the place that I have put him, the place does not want to let him go. However, there are people there, and I can put you in contact with them, and you can negotiate to see your Tio, but you will have to negotiate through the people who keep him safe, because I do not know if you know this, but he had some danger that had come to him.
You didn't mention anything to me. What danger do you speak of?
I'm not quite at liberty to say the confidentiality of my clients, but I can let him explain it to you if the people who are keeping him safe would allow that. Give me one moment. And he pulls out his phone and he makes a call to whatever group it is that's holding Tio.
He steps a little bit closer to try to hear what's going on the phone.
Oh, there he goes. Did you hear that, Todd?
Yeah, that would be Casper.
Oh, hey. He calls Casper up.
What's up, SA?
Well, one, I wanted to thank you again for earlier. I know the community needs to take care of its own. However, you are what do they call Tio? They don't just call him Tio.
His name is Martin.
His name is Martin.
Martin. He's like, I have a sort of a situation. Do you have Martin available?
Martin Castilllo.
You have Martin Castilllo available.
He's here. You need to speak with him. I can relay a message.
His so Tio would be what, nephew? Be his nephew?
Uncle. He's my uncle.
It's John's uncle.
No, I mean reverse relationship. It would be his nephew.
Oh yeah.
He says his nephew is very concerned and has come looking for him. I take it to be that he is not a danger to him, but he wishes to speak to his Tio, and it has to go through you first, since it is, of course, your obligations.
Put him on.
He hands over the phone.
He's scowling now because he was like, oh, earlier this night and everything. So he's putting it together. It can only be one person. So he takes the phone and kind of gives you a dirty look. This is Casper.
What's up, little man?
Why is my uncle with you?
Your uncle is, he's helping us out and we're helping him out. Turns out that, there's a little bit of pressure and he had to make himself scarce. Listen, nobody knows better than me how to protect him because I'm under the same pressure myself. Don't worry about your uncle. He's going to be fine. You know what? Next time you see him, he's going to have a shiny new suit. We're going to make that old man rich. Don't you worry about a thing.
When am I going to see him again?
Well, it's going to be a little while, okay? I can't tell you how many days. I'm going to say a number of days. There's a little bit of heat on right now. Cisco's in town. Go ahead and roll plus knowing.
All right. I got a 4 + 2 is 6.
Oh yeah, you totally know who Cisco is. He's a big deal. He represents one of the cartels from south of the border, and he would love to control all drug traffic in this town.
I don't see how Cisco's presence here is of any concern to my uncle or myself. That's not business that we deal with.
Listen, you put yourself at risk talking to me. I don't know whose phone is tracked by who, but I'll give you one more piece of information if you feel like sticking your neck out so far your head might be chopped off. Your uncle is helping us move a little bit of product. He knows his stuff. The old man provides quality, and we provide distribution. You're familiar with the little smoke? Where do you think it comes from? Suddenly, 2 + 2 comes together in your head. That bag of joints that was slid over to Morgan, that wasn't weed. Usually La Familia 13 deals with weed. But the papers were different. They were this dark brown that your Tio likes to use. The little smoke is a mild hallucinogen. It's one of the sacramental ritual ingredients of many of the ceremonies that you performed with him. It's like a low level hallucinogen. It has like short-term effects, 30 to 60 minutes.
He just kind of looks away, kind of like looks down, says, that is not a recreation. These are part of our sacraments. These are ritualistic.
Listen, little man, business is business. You're going to have to grow up sometime and deal with the real men in the real world. Money and power can be found in many ways, and this is but one avenue. In the meanwhile, it's helpful that your uncle needed a place to hide, because, like I said, he scratches my back and I scratch his.
He like shakes his head. He's
at this point, Filippo puts his hand out for the phone.
He looks at you and kind of gives you a sour look, and then hands the phone over. There's a lot to process.
All right,
I apologize very much. I am very sorry for this, but it will occur. People will come looking. Thank you for earlier, and you have a good night. Happy day, buenos noches dias. Whatever. I can't say it right now.
I think that's hysterical if Filippo is always getting the conjugation wrong.
He does the Italian conjugation.
Like he speaks like 5 languages, but only half-assed.
It's like a patchwork of random words.
All right, I think that the scene closes there. So John, what was Javier's intent? What did he want out of the scene? I'm sure he didn't expect to literally get Tio back immediately, but you were looking for information that might lead to that. Do you feel you got any sort of concession?
I mean, he knows that Casper has him now. I mean, that's more than what he knew before.
Right. So I think you did get a concession out of Filippo.
Yeah, I mean, he made the call for me, so.
Okay. So at this point, the drama point will go to Filippo. If you had any, it would be going from you to him. But since you don't, it's coming from the kitty.
Okay.
At that point, he tells him, "Your Tio has chosen his path." And then he looks out and he sees the guy leaving, and then that's where he exits to the previous scene.
And the iris down is him just like standing there, kind of like bewildered at all of this crazy information that's being thrown at him.
Awesome. All right. And I'm going to break right there for a moment while I refill the coffee cup.
Jesse, are you speaking? Because we can't hear you. You're not muted.
Actually,
Am I
my wife
unmuted
got
now?
help with groceries, so I'm going to have to go help put groceries away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now am I unmuted?
Yep, you're good.
I was muted on my headset.
Ah.
I must have leaned on it. I was saying, I love that you use like old 1970s editing techniques. Like nobody does that anymore.
What do you mean for what?
When you said like when you like iris down,
iris down, yeah.
it's like, are we doing sweep cuts as well? And
Oh yeah. None of that lens flare here.
All right.
Shawn is got to go bring in groceries, so which I guess is okay because Jesse's up. So
you don't know that.
no, well that's
Go
true.
to the deck.
Oh, look, the last card left says Manny.
Oh, I feel like a winner.
You should. But don't become a gambler.
So like for me, I guess as we have a second, it's kind of weird. You know, it's a sort of a fiasco sense of like calling a scene, resolving a scene, which we don't normally do that sort of thing when we play. So I'm assuming this will get easier and better as we sort of move along. Because I know we need the character stuff, but we're also trying to like get like character exposition in early to kind of like establish stuff. So I feel like we're a little
Yeah, but the best way to work that in is to literally look at the stuff that you wrote down during care gen and then act out a scene that shows us that. You know that writer's maxim where they say show don't tell?
Right.
Right. And that's exactly what they mean. Rather than describing the character as some omniscient third person, you know, he wants this,
Right.
but this is getting in his way. Act out a scene that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt you want that, and that's getting in your way. And then, if necessary, we roll the dice, or you have a dialogue with another character, and you will either get it or not. And if you don't get it, you get a drama token, which makes it more likely you'll get what you want later.
Right.
I actually like, and you know, as opposed to other more action-based RPGs where, you know, you come up with a character that has drive and backstory and everything like that, but then it may or may not play into.
Right.
I like that this is yeah, you know, you're choosing what you want to do to drive your character forward, and it's kind of all about driving your character and the story ahead.
Completely. And this is, I mean, you know, Robin Laws, most of his work exists in this, you know, the Venn diagram overlap between role-playing and dramatic theory, right? So he's, because like he wrote Hamlet's Hit Points, and you know, there's the drama system and Gumshoe and a bunch of other shit that he's worked on, is all very consciously an attempt to model genre narrative, you know, mystery stories, for instance, or in this case, like adult television series, with full-on character-driven narrative arcs, because that's what good television is. So that's why I'm very consciously using words like cut and camera angle and talking in terms of what the camera sees, because that's, I think, the best way to stay in. I don't want to say in character because that's a little bit wrong, You want to stay like in this space that's like part actor, part character, part director, right? Conscious of framing the scene so that it shows what you need to show and looks cool and drives the story forward, because that's all you've got. Good stories, this is debatable, but it's a trope, right? It's a thing that people say, good story is character driven. If you understand what the characters want, then the story flows from that naturally, because they have to do certain things because they want certain things. And the story is basically the story of them getting it or not getting it. And that determines whether it's a comedy or a tragedy. So it is now Manny's scene. And just like the others before, you can jump forward or back in time, however you want to do. When calling a scene, you tell us where you are, who is there with you. You can pull anybody in you want, PC or NPC. You can make somebody up. I'll play it. What time is it? When is it? Where are we in time? And what is it you want? What are you doing here?
All right. I actually think I'm going to go in a slight rewind, but just barely, to right after the incident at Morgan's. So, and I'm going to pull Javier into this, and I'm going to play almost directly into the contact with that, because especially I think right now nobody really knows that Javier is missing, and Javier kind of found that out, but he's going to be finding that out soon.
You mean that Martine is missing?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. So that so he's actually going to be attempting to negotiate and or drive to a path with Martine. So I'm actually going to be like, I don't see Javier all that much, and so having this shared encounter and also having him right here, I'm going to try to like kind of wait up the block a little bit and like catch him off. I'm not trying to rob him, but like catch him off guard to like approach him and confront him about giving me the opportunity to speak with Martine.
Okay, so like hey, do you got a minute kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see.
Like you haven't returned. I've left you messages. Like yeah, so I'll be like waiting.
I'm backing up. Talk to him.
Yeah, so Manny will kind of be waiting around the corner, like up the block, waiting for Javier to come by.
Right. He comes trucking by with his, box of candles and incense and other sundry things.
And hey, can I give you a hand with them?
I've got it. What's going on?
No, I've left you some notes. I swung by your place. It didn't look like you were there, and tried to call Martine a couple of times, so he hasn't been returning my calls.
Well, I mean, we think differently, you and I.
Yeah. But listen, I'm just trying to get some stuff done, and your uncle's kind of the only game in town right now, and I think that if I don't really understand the bad blood that we got. It doesn't really make sense to me, but I was expecting you knew, and I was hoping that you kind of have a little bit more of an open eye towards this.
Well, I mean,
by the way, you guys are surrounded by throngs of people milling about and loud music and the smells of food and frankincense. This is not a quiet corner.
Mm-hmm. And you could probably also like triple that noise for Manny as he also like sees.
Oh man!
And you probably see him too, like glance up and away from you and back to your view, Javier, as he sees like intermittent spirits like come into view and then fade out every once in a while.
Oh, trippy.
He says, I've heard things. I don't know that there's bad blood between us necessarily. I don't know that I trust you is the issue.
And he's kind of sick of this. And he's, what have I ever done to you or your uncle or anyone else around here? All you do is just look at us from sideways glances, cross the road when we're coming, and all I'm asking for is just a little word, just a little help. I'm not even asking for a handout. I just need some help. And you won't even do that.
We have seen people come through, people that we've had to help remove the results of your practices.
But
you wish to make that stronger?
No, I want to control it. If there's stuff happening because of what I'm doing, then that's on me.
Indeed.
I'm working with what I got, and people come to me, and I try to help them with what I can do. And if that's not good enough, then help me get that done. And you know what? If you can help me, or if your uncle can help me control it, then I'm done. You don't have to worry about anything else from me.
I would have to consult my Tio. He has said nothing to me of bringing on yet another apprentice.
No. I don't want any of that of that shaman stuff. That I'm not asking to join your cult or anything like that.
When you say that.
I just need some point. I just need some advice. That's all.
There's no one in your family that can help you?
You know about my family.
Indeed, and we find ourselves where we are now.
Just have Martine give me a call or swing by or anything. That's all I'm asking.
I will see what I can do. He is currently unavailable. When he returns, I shall speak with him.
Sure you will. And yeah, and it's like, and you should have gotten the gray ones, pointing to the candles. Those yellows aren't going to do anything for you, and they'll just walk away.
He just shakes his head.
Wow. Okay, so Jesse, do you feel that you got any kind of emotional concession?
If anything, I think I got the exact opposite. I think that only heightened the tension and conflict between the two of them.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And so the drama token is going to you.
Ooh, I get a token?
Get a token. Yeah. I'm screen sharing. Got to stop before I can start. I got to stop before I can start. Let that be a lesson to you, young people. There we go. Look at that. Jesse got one. Shawn has got two. That is, we have finished one round, people. Yay. And now
I find it fascinating all the scenes were in the reverse order.
Right?
It was this scene, then our scene behind the theater, and me going off.
Oh, yeah. That's true. It's like Memento over here. Okay. So it is time for round number 2. And I think, let's see, it is 8:20. Are we going to be able to make another? No, we're not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, can we make 4 more scenes in 40 minutes? I don't think we can. So
we just made 4 scenes in. We made 4 scenes in about a little over 50 minutes. So yeah.
Yeah, we're at an hour 48. So we did a half an hour of things. So we did an hour 10. I mean, roughly, right? I mean,
all right. So I think I'm gonna do that final scene, and then we'll do post game bookkeeping, which there's really not much. So, you guys split off and go into separate directions. It turns out that it is the theater that Javier is headed toward, and then he has his conversation with Filippo. And the camera pulls back up and away from the theater and spins around as you see it has now gotten very dark, but the colored lights are everywhere, and there's little bonfires burning. There's still people walking to and from the cemetery, and off in the distance you see the ghosts of the dead sitting on the cemetery walls and on their tombstones, and some of them leaving the cemetery to follow their families home. And Morgan stands in the back door of the Botanica, looking across the street or rather in the front door of the Botanica, looking across the street at the park and all the people and all the children and smelling all the smells. A car pulls up, and it's Casper who gets out. He comes up to her, and he says, "Look, I'm going to try to say this as nicely as I can, because I like you." And he reaches up and he touches her hair. She sort of pulls away a little bit, but, she resists flinching completely. And he says, "I'm going to take care of you, but I need you to do just one more thing. If anybody comes around looking for the source of the little smoke, you can't tell them it comes from La Familia. You're going to have to say, well, maybe you make it yourself. You can do that for me, can't you? And we'll make sure you're protected." She looks at him and understands that nothing comes without a cost. She swallows and nods. He says, "That's a good girl. Now you move product. We all make money. The Tigre's not going to move in on you." And then he comes really close to her and says, "I might move in on you, but that's another thing." She swallows hard and tries to smile. And the camera pulls back as the celebrators move down the road, singing and drinking and marching onward toward the cemetery. The end. So there's our first episode. It's a short one. It's a pilot. Hopefully it got your attention, makes you question things, makes you want to tune in for the next episode to see what the hell's going on with these guys. Here's the way the booking goes at the end of the game. We've done our closing scene. If there was, now let's talk amongst ourselves a little bit. But I know that Filippo definitely played into the theme of speaking with the dead, hearing voices literally in that scene in the theater. Jesse definitely played into Voices of the Dead because we saw him watching the dead walking around in the streets surrounding them. I don't think, I'm sorry to say, I don't think we saw Javier playing into the theme, so I'm going to give one drama token to Jesse and one to Shawn. These do roll over, so that next episode, if I'm doing my math right, it's 2 and 3. So the next episode, Jesse's going to start with 2, Shawn is going to start with 3 drama tokens. Remember to check out the rulebook. There's a bunch of circumstances in which they may be used, but basically put yourself in a scene, take yourself out of a scene, or change something in a scene, or to force someone to agree with something that they prefer not to, but you're going to bribe them to do it. So that's what those are. And then the very last thing we do is learning. Oh, here we go. I have to find the page where the rule is. Okay. I think I made everyone do at least one roll. I don't know if they were signature moves. Did anybody use a signature move?
Nope. I didn't. No.
I had the hustle at the beginning of the scene or whatever to get the They got me monies.
That's true. Filippo did do a signature move. Manny, you didn't meet anybody new, so there's no chance for a bad reputation. And Javier, no chance for turning in anything. So Filippo, you are the only one who gets to learn something. Now, here's what you can do with this. You can either add 1 point to a strong ability. That's an integer greater than 0. You can add 1 point to a weak ability. That's a 0. Turn it to a 1. You can take a new signature move from one of your categories, or you can take a signature move from any other category as long as no other PC has it. The exception to that rule is that if you choose a magia move, you need a mentor.
I'm gonna put knowing to 1 because that seemed like it's his character.
That does make sense. And there we are. So the next time we meet, it will be episode 2. I will choose a different theme. You'll play into that theme, but it will, in theory, pick up where this story left off and continue from there.
It was like getting in the water, you know, like it was frigid at first, and you just don't want to go in. And then once we got immersed, it was like swimming like a fish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you might have been off doing your household chores when I was talking to Jesse about that. But literally, as Jesse pointed out, it's all character driven. It comes straight off your PC sheet. So unlike a lot of games where your background is incidental to the adventure on screen, here the adventure on screen comes literally from your background. So if you ever don't know what to do, you just look at your character sheet and you go, well, my desire is this. This is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, how would I get that?
It was also a personal thing because it's just I haven't played in a long time. It's just like, I don't know. It's the game is very different than a lot of other games.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
well,
absolutely.
what really hit it with me too is actually, Todd, when you were talking to John about his scene, and it's basically the easiest way to do it is to pick a pole. Picking a pole, figuring out how it connects into your desire, and using that as a drive for the scene that you're going to do. That's what helped me in deciding what I was going to do with Javier.
Well, you know what? It not only like frames and cuts and forms character-driven narrative like a TV show does, but if you think about it, the way that probably best practice for us interrelating as a creative collaborative group is also like television. If you imagine the writer's room at a typical TV series, especially soap operas or telenovelas, where there's a whole room full of writers, and most of them have one character that's their main thing, that's their main character, and they carry the plot lines that involve that character, and then they brainstorm ways to interweave all of their plot lines. And meanwhile, there's a director or a showrunner or sometimes both, and he's the one that keeps the whole thing gelled, like make sure nobody wanders off so far we're in the wrong genre or whatever, and provides the color that fills in the gaps between what the writers are coming up with. So I think if you do it right, it not only feels / looks like a TV show, but it also gets written like a TV show.
So am I correct in mapping out that it's Cisco is looking for Tio, and that it's Casper who's hiding him? Because that was originally we pitched it was going to be like the cartel and then a smaller gang, and those are the two things that popped up in the story. So unless there's another thing we don't.
Well, that's where I'm going, and it seems to be where you were going too. So Cisco represents the cartel, and La Familia turns out to be not only people you've done business with in the past, but also the people that you hid Tio with.
What's fascinating is
then it turns out, on top of that Tio is providing La Familia with a drug that Cisco wants to control.
Which is why they say Tio is a resource.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating this all emergent. That stuff just sort of made itself into the story.
I had to like quickly come up with some reason because you said they don't want to let him go, and I'm thinking, are they making him do magic for them? And that seemed really weird. Then I thought, oh well, yeah, he knows how to make all these weird hallucinogens and shit, like Don Juan, Carlos Castaneda's kind of stuff. So yeah, the little smoke. That's actually a reference to Castaneda.
All right.
Don Juan Matus teaches him how to make and smoke the little smoke.
Nice.
So I have a world question. How much is the thing like what Javier is like shape shifting and shamanism and everything like that, and even like the brujo magic, like is that how much of that is real within the world, like well known within this area? Like, oh yeah, of course Javier was a coyote. Like how much of that would not catch people off guard, and how much of it is like stories that like people want to believe? How much of it is real and how much of it is Santa?
It is exactly like the real world modern day. The genre that we're emulating is called magical realism, and like the Don Juan books of Carlos Castaneda, or like a lot of other movies, but mostly this is a literary thing. The genre treats supernatural events with every bit as much realism as it treats normal narrative events. But what may differ is people's understanding of it. So just like the real world today, if you go to certain communities and you ask, did he really turn into a coyote? They would say, of course he did. But if you go to another community and they're like, are you an idiot?
So yeah, and so I think one more is that, so they're the people that obviously believe that he would have, but then if they saw him do it, would they be like, oh yeah, that's Javier turned into a coyote again, or would they freak the F out?
They would probably freak the F out or decide they were hallucinating. I mean, that
so it's one of those things where like they believe it, but at the same time, like almost nobody's ever really seen it happen.
Yeah, and I mean, there are, and I'm sure you've read about them and probably believe in at least a few, magi or gurus or Hindu mystics or Zen monks or who have performed feats that seem physically impossible and made things happen seemingly with their mind, or known things that they couldn't possibly have known. As a matter of fact, I think almost everyone has had at least one completely unexplainable thing happen in their own life, right? And what you decide to interpret that as, well, that's up to your worldview and your character. But the fact that something inexplicable happened, that you don't doubt.
A good literary thing aside from Carlos Castaneda is Charles. He does so the magical realism, urban fantasy is the same thing. Charles DeLint is one of the best writers for that, and he has some stuff set in the American Southwest. But all of his novels kind of cover that sort of, the real world and the magical world, and they sit side by side. And
you know what also does that? I think you could say that the typical vampire masquerade kind of a thing, that's magical realism too, because vampires are real. There's one next door. You just didn't know.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's always a fine line when you're dealing with any genre that deals with the supernatural, the mystical, or anything, is how much do people buy into it, and also how frequent, how regular is it? So like the thing I like about like system, like this setting and like Vampire Masquerade and all that kind of stuff. It's like it happens, but it's all sub level. So like most of the time the characters and everything that we play the sub level just below like common knowledge of the world.
Yeah, the marginalized cultures where magic still exists.
Right.
On the other side of the other border.
I also find the subject analogous to the UFO thing, where was it a hallucination? Did we see it? Was it a weather balloon? Denial, mass hysteria, hallucination. So it's like there's all these explanations, but the characters themselves believe fully that this is what's real when everything around them says, "Oh no, that wasn't real. There's no evidence."
Well, yeah, but even the people who are trying to debunk the theorists, they're not debunking that the theorists saw anything. They're trying to explain what they saw.
Or why they saw it. Yeah. Like you said, I don't doubt that they saw what they thought was a UFO.
Yeah, but meanwhile, everybody, even the most rigid skeptic, has had something happen in their life. It's like, like I heard my Nana call my name, and that was the moment she was dying in Philadelphia. Or when my brother and I read that magic spell, I swear to God, we had a week of bad luck.
I like it. It's real good. I mean, even for the first episode, as rough as it was at the start, I'm very into this. I'm looking forward to the next game. In fact, actually, I was ready to go on for like another 2 or 3 hours.
I think this first episode did a really good job of setting up even though we did it on Slack and in a little bit in the session 0, I think that this was setting up the contacts between the characters and showing their drive and reasonings and how they're going to play into whatever happens in the future.
It is very important that you guys lean on each other during CareGen, because that's where the exciting and original ideas are going to come from, the living human beings who are the players in the game. But aside from having written the book and given you a copy of the book, I'm kind of hands off until we begin playing. But just like in Apocalypse World, you do want to explore the relations between the characters, but it's also important to show that the world they're living in is not a static and unmoving thing. It's a living thing. So that becomes my job. While you guys breathe life into your characters, I'm trying to breathe life into the space between you and around you, and to come up with moving, active, either threats or goals or mysteries or something bigger than you. And whether you decide to move in that direction or not isn't even so important. My job is to make sure that, like, picture 360-degree cameras surrounding you wherever you go, every set, right? My job is to make sure that every degree around you feels like a living world that's got shit going on.
Well, you do it well, so.
I just thought of something. When I was trying to think of my scene and everything, I'm trying to realize, like, he's a loner. Like, the only person he lives with or really has any constant contact with is his grandmother, and she's like senile, and so that's not like, that won't really make a good scene. Except for in like a quick description type thing. I can't really see like any role play happen there. I don't know if, Todd, you just want to like ramble off gibberish for 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, you can do exposition scenes. Yeah, but they don't really drive anything.
Exactly. Yeah, but then I actually just had the thought of he's constantly surrounded by spirits. So depending on what the theme of the next episode I might make you play a ghost. So
what I'm here for, bro.
Throw a little echo on it, do a little resonation on it.
Oh, yeah. You can knock yourself out with the audio for that one, John.
You know, because it made me think of it when you were saying, you know, kind of drive the world around you as well. And I just noticed like we all paired up in each of our scenes. We pulled each other in, but didn't really, which made sense for a first episode. But we didn't like really try to do much with the world around us. So
well, we had Morgan, but I mean,
sure, yeah,
let's set that up. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and I think that it's probably fair to say that for a first episode, that's probably typical because I, like another player at the table, I do need to get my description out there. So that even if, okay, you guys, you know, like, you could have created very different characters, right? You could have created one who was a criminal, another who was a cop, and one would be chasing the other right away. There would be like no reason for me to even do anything, right? But you created these characters who were kind of more subtle and deeper and intellectual, and we had this theme that seemed to be developing about magic and what magic means, and is it real or is it not real? Is it stagecraft or is it cultural tradition, or is it different kinds? Like, I love that scene between John and Jesse where they're like basically dissing each other's magical school. So for the first episode, we need, for you guys and also for the, you know, like the viewing audience at home, we need to let that reality soak in and just give us the hint of the beginning of what will probably be the plot that pulls us through the whole season. You know, and it looks like it's going to focus around Tio and this drug, Cisco and La Familia. But then again, we haven't even seen you guys do your signature moves yet. You could completely pull me in some other direction.
Actually, when you're talking about that, it's it would be interesting actually in edit like of the show. You know, you mentioned, Shawn, that we basically shot everything in reverse.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting though if actually like flipping that around, the buildup of the world is more interesting, I think, in the reverse, where, you know, we have like a pretty common scene of like a gang, gang turf issue in a market, and then Manny talks to Javier about getting in touch with his uncle, and that's kind of, you know, there's not a ton of like content overtly expressed there.
It would be the gang scene at Morgan's, and then Manny talking to Javier, and then Javier talking to Filippo, and then last it would be Filippo going out to the airport
and connecting Cisco back to the drugs, which connects back to Morgan. Which
that would actually be the last
final end cap with the Casper and Morgan at the shop.
But even we have that quick scene with Filippo too, where he actually feels like the ghost of his grandfather and everything like that build up, and so that's when we have like the spiritualism of the world start to kind of breach in slightly.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean,
it was quite on purpose that I made sure to involve literally seeing the dead in the opening sequence. So you guys would know, and the viewing audience at home would know, this is a world where supernatural things happen. You'll see it on camera. Yep.
And now and I think especially with what you did with Filippo at the end, with, you know, in the middle of that scene, is it makes, if from a viewer's perspective, you know, the spirit world is happening, but now with that was the first like true connection with the other side.
What's interesting about that scene is that technically that means he had the ghosts, then he saw Cisco, and the other character came in and talked to him. So there was a ghost, and right after the ghost, the other character comes in. So like the ghost disappeared.
Oh, you're right.
But I'm curious if that's like, is the ghost appearance is impacted by the spiritual people around him exerting sort of force over the like barrier between worlds.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, it kind of makes me want to retcon just like a 3-second scene where Javier comes in and your grandfather like disappears.
And then he talked to him, and then he left off after Cisco. No, and I'm really digging it. I think everything like the drama system and the way the Robert laws with the hill folk stuff merges together. It really just creates these organic emergences. Something I wanted to ask a little earlier. So this is player facing. This is very like player oriented, and you kind of just prod us along. But that means we can play not just our characters, but also like our subsidiary characters around us, like my assistant, or if they have,
You can tell me what they do, as I think you did a little bit. Or if you would prefer, you can ask me to play them. If you need to have a conversation.
Oh, I have no problem having a conversation with myself.
Okay. Well, actually, basically, it's open. We'll do whatever we want to do. I'm sure if you ask nicely, you could even get another player to play an NPC for a minute.
Got it.
Yeah, we're open. Whatever you want to do. There is a difference in the rules, but functionally speaking, it's not very important between minor characters and supporting characters. The main bit difference being that minor characters are basically functional only. They're the valet who parks your car. You never see them again. But supporting characters would be like those who have a name and a desire of their own, and we'll see them again and again. And a supporting character might argue against you. Like if you had an important supporting character who you wanted something from, it wouldn't really make much sense for you to do a dramatic scene against yourself. So I would have to play them, and then we'd see who you get it.
This should be 2 people apart from each other.
Yeah.
Got it.
That makes sense.
But aside from that, and not only characters, but also locations, events, history, surroundings, don't feel limited to just making up your own character or your own place of business or your own home. You can make up whole big chunks of the city. You can make up gangs. You can make up the name of the mayor and what he looks like.
I'll do.
You're as much of a writer on this show as I am. If anybody has any problem with anything ever, it's a democratic game. We go to a vote. 50% or more is carries.
Plus, I think an example of our scenes, all 3 of us seem to know when to inject conflict and drama. Like we didn't. I don't think any of us really took the easy road. We made sure that there was some sort of like struggle in our scene.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the CareGen system makes sure of that, and you just have to remember to use what's there. So, like I said before, if you ever don't know what to do in a scene, you look down, look at your desire, and look at your poles, and like Jesse said, choose one. So choose a pole and figure out how to get closer to your desire, because that is what your character would do. That's what we decided. But if this is a TV show, the viewers at home don't know that yet. We prefer to see it enacted.
I would have liked to wound up with the scene, maybe just an expositional scene with Javier at his grandmother's grave.
Yeah, well, you know what? The night it's not that late. We could pick up right where we left off next time. Mm-hmm. Or I could remind you that it's the first day of a 3-day long festival.
Mm-hmm.
And in this town, as in many towns, the cultures differ from place to place and traditions differ from place to place. But here I've decided that the first night honors the children who are departed. The second night is for adults, and then the last night is All Souls Eve.
Okay, well, maybe it would make sense then that he would go to.
Yeah, it might make more sense that tomorrow is the big day for you.
Okay. I think we open with that scene next game, because at the gravestone's like a great opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Manny can see the spirits,
mm-hmm.
and I guess Filippo has his own thing where he at least see his grandfather. Would Javier see the spirits tonight? I don't know if that's something he would normally see. I don't know that it's part of that background.
Well,
or could he? Maybe he could feel it, right? Like you feel the energy because of the magia.
oh, you can definitely feel it. And
Okay.
to be honest, I think I'm probably stretching it a little bit to just go ahead and say Manny sees the spirits like all the time.
Mhm.
But my assumption there, and we could, if you want, go ahead and give Jesse a communing role. But my guess was, since he can do it on purpose a lot, and part of his character definition is he wants to sort of like get away from it or get it under control,
right,
that there was enough bleed over to allow it. Whereas in your case, your background and your skills don't point in that direction.
Yeah.
It makes a little less sense. However, if we were in the park on a warm afternoon and there were 3 crows and one of them was bigger than the other 2 and kept looking at you in a funny way, and you said, I think that crow is a rival magician, I would agree with you.
Mhm.
You know better than I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and with Manny, with him kind of seeing the spirits all the time, I wasn't trying to like game the system at all or anything. It's just when I was looking at a lot of the Brujo signature moves and everything, most of them, if not all, seem to be focused on controlling the spirits. And so I felt that like being like actually seeing them when he didn't want to see them actually showed his lack of control. And
I agree.
His inability to tap into the abilities.
Plus, if I wanted a chicken exit, I can always bail 2 days later and say, no, it's because during El Dia de Muerte, the veil is thinner.
Right, yeah.
But I think it's narratively appropriate. I mean, not everything's got to be a role, right? I mean, it makes the character more interesting to say that that's something that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a just picture that scene, right? Like he's having this intense conversation where they're kind of attacking each other a little bit and defending themselves.
Mhm.
But at the same time, he keeps like looking to the left and right, which to Javier probably makes him look shifty and shady.
Yeah.
But when the camera cuts to Manny's point of view, you see what he sees. That's a fucking shocking scene.
Dude, that's awesome. I love just the visualization of that, of a normal, like, yeah, there's like a party going on and everything's happening, but like you see everything from Javier's point of view, where it's like just like all the people having a party and everything like that. But then you switch to Manny's view, and there's also like just hundreds of skeletons glowing, walking around,
Yeah,
like milling about amongst the people.
now that's a cool fucking scene.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tension, and it's weird because like the tension on the surface, it has nothing to do with the tension that's happening visually.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a rivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how that's how I read a lot of it in the book, is that John, exactly how you played it out is like you almost have like the light and the dark. It's not necessary. It's not like Jedi and Sith where they hate each other, but like
you're both
like
have the same goal, but you have different paths to
exactly. And like the shamans are like look down upon like the dark magic, like the dark of the Brujo, but then you also like screw you goody two shoes type stuff to the other side. It's like
Yeah.
Plus on a character level, Javier is interested in like personal enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so anything lesser,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be judgmental of.
Yep.
Like,
I love
even if you weren't a Brujo, if you were like, he probably looks down on Morgan a little bit because her magic is merely practical.
Mm.
It has nothing to do with elevating your soul.
Mm.
It's just like winning the lotto. Like, oh, can I make myself win? No.
Yeah, she's like on the most basic level.
Mm-hmm. selling hexes to, and I mean that's probably also some of the stuff that Manny does just to make a buck to get by, which is what Javier hates about it. Is like I'll make a hex for your ex-boyfriend, so his dick falls off, like that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're the source of Morgan's dark magic materials.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they wind up over at Tio's house. They're like, "Hey, I've got this problem. Can you fix it?"
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. My jealous lover made my dick turn black. Or it can. I mean, and in this world, it could. That absolutely happens. That absolutely happens. Hell, in this world, a rival magician not only turns into a coyote, but he turns into a coyote and kills your sheep.
Mm.
Yeah.
You come out and find the dead animal.
I don't know. Javier wouldn't do that, but
Right.
I mean, I guess you could.
Oh, you know what? We gotta create not a rival, but like an evil version of Javier who is killing sheep, and then Javier has to go out and stop him, like coyote on coyote combat.
Some hot coyote on coyote action.
Mage versus mage.
Wow.
Right.
There's a scene in my head. It kept going through my head when I was writing this book because it's like the penultimate fusion or pastiche of like the major tones in the book. I keep picturing this. It would have to be like a whole campaign where it's mostly about cops fighting drugs and illegal immigration, but along the way, the local community gets tired of this war and calls their magicians into play. So then you end up with magic versus bullets. That's what kept going through. When I was writing this book, I'm like, it's sooner or later that campaign's going to happen where like half of the players are like totally real world characters like cops and businessmen. And then half of them are magicians. And we're going to end up with a duel of bullets versus magic. You know it's going to happen. Right.
And that's, I mean, when we created our characters, I don't think we necessarily meant to, but it's kind of the process. And I think what we're all used to is like classic game, like gamers, is that I think we just happen to lean towards making a cohesive group. Because like when you play like D&D or like you're kind of driven while having some infighting is nice. Like we're ultimately driven to create a cohesive group that works together. But what you just mentioned, it's like what never even crossed my mind is like creating a rival in the same group. Like we don't have to work together. You don't have to win. We could have a drug dealer. One could be a drug dealer. One could be an FBI agent, and like that. Yeah. That could be a thing in this game, and just all of our contacts with each other are we're not helping each other.
Because in the typical game, we have to come up with some sort of conceit of why these people would stay together, adventure after adventure, dungeon after dungeon, right? But here, the drama actually comes. It's more interesting if you don't get along, because that's going to create interesting scenes, interesting tension. And that tension is really, that's what you're watching TV for. If nobody watches a show where everything's fine and everyone gets along and nothing happens, that would be a really bad show. What's important to remember is that unlike the traditional game, there's no sense of like, my character's going to win. Because a win here is whatever the coolest, most dramatic fucking thing is. Even it's like John mentioned Fiasco, or this is one thing that it has in common with Fiasco. Sometimes in Fiasco, the coolest thing that can happen is for your character to die in some tremendously cinematic way, and that's like the coolest scene in the whole movie. Why not? Winning doesn't mean winning. Winning means a fucking awesome story that I would watch.
We're here to serve the experience of the story, not ourselves. But in doing so, we serve ourselves.
But even like the way I was thinking about it is originally it's we all usually the way the game is set up is like the players are the good guys and then the GM plays like the bad guys.
Yeah.
And like that's where the versus comes in. But that's in this case, you're just like you said, you're more of the director, like just going things and filling in what roles need to be done. And so the conflict could come, like we don't have to have all the cops be the stars of the show. Like you could have a couple cops be the stars, and you could also have a couple of drug dealers be the stars. Like,
yeah, and it can work on different levels too.
Yeah.
You try to be a good GM. I'm watching you guys. If you guys ever stall, it's like that apocalypse move thing where if the players ever stall and like look at the GM like, well, what happens now? That's when I whip out a GM action, and that I introduce a new problem, or I demand some sort of payment or toll or money, or I make your situation worse. And because again, it's like it's the bad shit that makes the plot interesting.
Right.
So whenever you guys get stuck, I throw in more bad shit. But it also scales because if you guys like became like if you decided in scene 1 that you're gonna band up and forge a vow that the three of you will help each other through thick and thin, one for all and all for one, save Morgan and clean the town, and like you decide we're gonna become buddies and superheroes and we're gonna be the good guys, well then I would just start throwing bad guys at you, but then B, I would also start looking at playing you against each other. Like an NPC who really likes one of you and does favors but hates the other one.
I think of it as your prod and stick. Whenever the game's not going, you just reach your stick in and you prod something until it moves.
Yeah, and there's actually a list of moves that I can do. So it's just like Apocalypse World, right?
Really?
I choose one of these. Yeah, I'll read them to you. Put someone in a difficult situation. Bring news of something happening off screen. Make known an impending threat. Demand money. Offer an opportunity. Take away something. Show the downside of an advantage, or inflict harm.
Huh.
So basically, by the rules of the game, there are. This also happens, by the way, when you fail, when you roll 2 or less on any procedural roll. So if you roll 2 or less, I whip out one of these actions and I make your life harder.
Hey.
I get to choose which one.
And ultimately, that makes it more interesting.
Yeah. But other than that, most of the problems should come from you guys, because before we even start acting out scene 1, you already have tension and problems between you. The game made sure of that.
Right. No, that's when we play the cipher system, and I like that. In that, whenever there's a failure, if you want to make things harder and everything, the system says like just throw stuff at them. But it's not very specific in how to, so it leads a lot of interpretation up to the GM, which can be nice, but at the same time, it's overwhelming. I like how with this system, it's like, okay, you can throw stuff at them, and like you probably don't have to do those exactly, but it's like this is a list of things you can do, and it doesn't tell you how to do them.
The inverse is also true, because it's like I don't make a move until you guys either run out of moves or blow a roll. Because ideally the drama comes straight out of you guys.
No, I just like that it gives you the freedom to do it, but at the same time it gives you, there's the list there of you can just be like, this is the bad shit that you can do.
Yeah.
Like it's right there, and there's enough options that you have plenty of freedom to do whatever you want, but there's still like that hint there of like, same with the system does for us creating a scene. It's like you can create whatever you want, but this is a good starting point.
Yeah, and I think we may have to tip the hat to Vincent Baker for that as a general technique. The idea of presenting people with a list of stuff, but not making it a die roll table, but just like choose one of these.
Right.
I love Baker's stuff so much, man.
And there's a lot of games that do that now, but I think Apocalypse World was the first game I saw that really turned that into a tool, both for making your character and also for the GM while running.
Before that, didn't he do Dogs in the Vineyard?
I don't know which one came first, honestly.
That's like all his stuff is like that.
It's great. I mean, that's a good middle ground between, telling you what to do or leaving you completely floundered.
It's what reinvigorated my whole like gaming life was reading Apocalypse World because it was so different than anything I'd ever encountered.
Absolutely. I wish that he'd hired me to be the developmental editor on that, because I think the organization of that book is some of the worst I've ever seen in a game rules book.
Rogue Trader.
I mean, he sort of rambles in character for like 9 pages, and then somewhere in the middle, and which it's great. It's like he's rambling about fiction, right? So it's going on. He's painting a picture of Apocalypse World, but in the middle of that passage was a part about where a character makes a roll, and this is the way that the dice work, and then he goes on talking. So,
that's so Broken Pillar is a game that I've been trying to get together and work on for like ever and never comes about. One of the first iteration of it is I wanted to separate the crunch and the fluff into 2 separate books. It's impossible because your narration style eventually bleeds over, but I really like books where they have like all the rules are right here, it's right up front, and then you could just go on and on about all the setting and characters and stuff afterwards. Because
I'm working on I'm editing the atlas of Chromatic Chameleon's upcoming role-playing world, which is kind of a D&D-esque fantasy world that Tiffany Gray is working on. And what I suggested there, and I think she's decided to go for it, was to do what you just described twice at once by using a sidebar. So like 2/3 of the page width is basically I don't want to say fluff text, but it's your expositional text.
Yeah.
Right? This is an atlas of a fantasy world, so there's a lot of expositional text, but wherever appropriate in the sidebar is the rule that pertains to that. Like we're talking about the weather right now, and that right there is where we put the weather table.
Or if you have rules throughout the book, have one section of the book that condenses all the rules to play the game into one like just rules summarized like all together, and then you can have like rules throughout it, but those rules like the main condensed form will say for further information see later page of the book. But I think
it turns out you need to play test before you have any idea what those rules should be.
Oh yeah,
because like I released Day Trippers, I had only play tested it like 2 or 3 times, and with people that I run all the time and making all the assumptions I typically make at home, and I created all these tables and charts and shit, and both books are out. Okay, so then I went, okay, it's time to make the GM screen because I need more product. I'll make a GM screen, and I pulled all these tables out of the book and I arranged them all. Well, it's like 4 years later now, and I've run a lot more Day Trippers, and half the shit on that GM screen I almost never look at, and the stuff that I do look at should be more front, center, and bigger. And even the author of the game didn't know that until he'd run his own game for a couple years.
Oh, quick side note. I was on Reddit looking for what's surreal or dreamlike weird games where what seems like it's real is not actually real. And they listed, like Colt, Don't Rest Your Head, et cetera, et cetera. And then halfway through the list, I saw Day Trippers.
Right on.
Nice.
Twinkle fingers. It's good to be mentioned. It's good to be known. I read also on Reddit, probably about a month ago, in a thread that was about completely something else, but for some reason it meandered into Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation. And one guy said he's using the Day Trippers rules to run an Annihilation campaign.
Oh,
nice.
That's so fucking awesome.
Oh, man. I have his Wonder... Actually, I think it's right behind me.
That is an amazing book.
I got his Wonder book. I don't know if you've seen this thing.
Oh, yeah.
This is densely packed.
It's amazing.
Jeez, that guy is on something else.
I know, right?
I need to get into more him and what's his China Melville.
Oh yeah, you haven't read a lot of Mayville?
I have one of his books. I need to pour into the rest of them.
I would have expected you to have read a lot more. Although honestly, he's very hit and miss for me. Sometimes I fucking love it, and other times I'm like, dude, what are you trying to do?
Dude, there's so many books. My entire room is just piles of books. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna read that. I'll just put it on the stack.
Yeah. You don't get to moan about your financial situation when you buy as many books as I know you buy.
Hey, now. Yeah, if I stopped buying any more books, I would still not run out of stuff to read for the next 5 years.
I stopped buying books 10 years ago, and I still have books in this room that I have not read. So I can tell you.
Oh, and I could pull the camera up around. Entire wall over there is just nonstop.
Holy
Oh.
fuck.
Oh, hey, there's a child there waving at you.
Hello, child.
Hello, child.
What's that?
All right. Do we want to wrap this up?
I think we've run out of steam, gentlemen.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for checking this out. Hopefully they'll tune in for the continuing adventures. We have, about 6 episodes planned, I think is what we were talking about.
For a total of 6? Yeah, so 5 more coming. And who knows?
So we're doing every other? That put us on the 17th?
Yes, sir.
That's right. The first and third, not every other. First and third.
I'm going to say that would put us on the 31st would be the week. I'm looking at the calendar right now. It's 3, 10, 17, 24, 31. So that would be the 17th and the 31st would be our next 2 games.
No. It'll be because we're doing the not every other week, but we're doing the first and third Fridays of every month. So the 17th followed by the 7th?
Yeah. Okay, I was going to say because 31st is my birthday, so I disappear from the world for 24 hours.
Oh, well, then that worked out very fortuitously. And I do the exact same thing on my birthday.
I pretend mine doesn't exist.
I go to work.
I do try to pretend mine doesn't exist, but for me, the best way to do that is to make sure everyone else doesn't exist.
Fair enough. All right. Well, again, thank you for everybody for checking it out. We have coffee for sale, the Legendary Brew. There's links in the show notes, or you can go to tinyurl.com/legendary brew to pick up that awesome coffee roasted by our own Neil. It's Birds of a Feather Coffee Company. It's a it's a small batch craft coffee roaster. Everything's roasted to order, especially if you order the Legends. It's not sitting somewhere in a bag. If you order it today, it'll be roasted within a few days and get to you as fresh as it could possibly be. A little bit of money comes back to the show, and we appreciate that. If you order it, it's really good. It's what I drink all the time. I just ordered 2 bags of whole bean coffee, so that coming soon, I hope. I got the notification, so I'm looking forward to that. And Todd's got other borders for sale. There's links for that in the show notes. Also, fictioneers.net. You can check out all the cool games over there. Day Trippers, obviously, you hear that all the time. So please check all those things out. And thanks for coming. Thanks for checking it out. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.